Our first ever visit to Universal Beijing was far from perfect. In fact, we had kind of a miserable time. And anyone that listened to that episode last season or 2 seasons ago, at this point, maybe 2 seasons ago, because we went there in 2024, can attest to that being kind of a mess. And some of it you can chalk up to the park being relatively new, but it opened in 2021, so 3 years later it should have its stuff together, right? So we revisited for the 5th anniversary. We just went, and I'm happy to report we had a much better time. So today's episode will be discussing all things Universal Beijing, like first visit, second visit, and what was improved. And I look forward to discussing that.
Did you know that this is actually Universal's biggest park? We were looking this up before the episode, and you'd suggested that was the case, and I wasn't actually sure, but you were right. It is the biggest. It doesn't have the most attractions, but it is the biggest.
It doesn't do the biggest things, but it is the biggest park. And a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings. And today's episode is all about Universal Beijing Resort, Universal Studios Beijing, located in Beijing. Mm-hmm. Surprise. And
super
so,
far
like I mentioned,
Beijing,
our first visit
at the very end of like the easternmost west train stop.
It takes a little longer to get there than most people would realize. With them, our first visit, we were like, "What?"
It takes like an hour from the city center.
Like an hour. But the good news is that it's really like a nice kind of secluded. Now they're building a bunch of buildings around it. They're building a Haicheng Ocean Park indoor theme park also next to it. But it's still kind of nice and remote, and it doesn't feel like you're in like a really busy part of the city, which is kind of nice. So this visit, we had a much better time, but we also came prepared. We knew exactly what we wanted to ride. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today. And the first thing we'll talk about real quick is how we got to the park. In the previous visit, we took the metro all the way from the city center to the park. This time we actually DD to the park in the morning, just because the metro was going to be so busy. And it takes about the same time from the city center to just take a car out there. And then, but you can also take Metro Line 1 or Metro Line 7, both end at Universal Beijing Resort. Another thing is that in the middle of the day, we actually dipped out real quick. I went to Happy Valley for a couple hours and then came back, and we did it just using the metro. So metro is just as easy, especially if you're already kind of on the east side of the city. I would recommend just hopping on the metro. It is quite convenient. If you can figure out how DD works and use metro, it's not difficult. You just need time for either way.
DD is a good option too, just if you're traveling with multiple people, because it's very cheap. If you're going by yourself, trains are almost always going to be the cheaper option, even if it's not necessarily the fastest. But if you're like a group of 2 or 3, you might as well just DD, because your cost will always go up per person when you're taking the train and everybody pays for themselves. But DD's, if you're carpooling, it's like, well, why not? Like just DD. Like it's really not that expensive. You can unlearn the idea of taxis being an expensive part of travel when you're in China, because they're honestly so cheap. They're more than a train ticket, but marginal. It's not gonna move the needle much in the overall cost of your trip, and it just saves you a lot of headache and gives you some time to relax and charge your phone, check social media and that kind of stuff. So definitely team DD.
So to start this episode, I think we should discuss our previous visit a bit. Just kind of a recap for those that haven't heard our previous episode. Long story short, the very first visit was exactly the same time of year, exact same week of the month actually, but a couple of years ago in 2024. So first of all, it was such a busy visit. It was really busy. All the lines for attractions were astronomically long, and the wait times were so incorrect. It was always at least 50% longer than the wait time had specified. If it said 2 hours, it'd be a 3-hour wait, that kind of thing. Like it was incredibly off, and so our experience was just constant frustrations with the operation, with the way that lines were advertised, the way that the crowds were managed. Cleanliness was a big issue our first visit. It's not that great in the restrooms, but just in general, cleanliness was a big issue our first visit. And then I thought that the infrastructure was just not that nice. Lots of sideline issues. The details of finishes were really cheap, crumbling, black mold. It just felt like a cheaply constructed theme park, just really big. And then the entry procedure was really chaotic the first time we went. It just wasn't streamlined. People's faces weren't working, their IDs weren't working. But this was already 3 years into this
Face
process,
cards
so
were being
it was
declined
kind of shocking.
left and right.
If that isn't the truth. This time my face was like immediately accepted.
Mine was not.
That's kind of wild. I think I literally used my face only to get inside.
Took some time. Yours went lickety split.
I was pretty impressed by that. And then the biggest issue for me last time was the technology was not optimized for Western audiences. So in order to experience almost any Chinese theme park at this point, is you need to have one of your super apps. So it's either Alipay or WeChat. And then within the super apps, you have your mini programs. A mini program for Universal Beijing was just not optimized for Westerners. Like Westerners could not buy express passes on it last time. So we didn't know how to get front of the line passes. We didn't know what was offered because there simply wasn't a way of getting it. And the only way to do anything is through a super app. There's not any sort of brick and mortar. It doesn't really exist anymore in China for big experiences, theme parks, anything really. So eventually we had to make our way to guest services maybe through the day and explain our situation. And they tried opening our programs. Like, oh, you have to buy it here. But the programs weren't optimized for Westerners, so we couldn't buy it. So eventually, long story short, they took our passports and were able to get us some like paper versions of it that, I mean, that took a lot of effort. It took a couple of casts of team members just to get us these front of the line passes just for a couple of rides that we just didn't have time to do if we had to wait through the actual queue. So that's the only, it was like a dash proceed that we had to eventually figure it out with team members just to get it figured out at guest services. It was just like a really
that visit was such a chore
experience.
But I did spend,
and
I spent a lot of that visit with the firm belief, knowing that our next visit would be a lot smoother. There was a lot of rides that were disappointing that did not need to be rewritten necessarily. We did rewrite Jurassic Flyer, even though I consider that to be a disappointment, but it was kind of nice to ride it and not have to wait 2.5 hours, even though the estimated wait time was like 100 minutes tops, and we still waited 2.5 hours for that. That was how our day started on our last visit, and like the day never truly recovered after that horrible experience. But like we skipped Kung Fu Panda, we skipped the shows.
Well, okay, so I think we're kind of going out of order here because I'm maybe confusing. So the first visit, we didn't skip any of that. Yeah. The first visit, we did ride Kung Fu Panda, which we thought was terrible. Right. It's one of the worst rides. But then we
my point being,
I'm getting confused.
My only point is that our first visit, part of the reason why it was so bad is because we did everything. And honestly, not everything in this park is worth doing, except for like personal curiosity. Like the Kung Fu Panda ride is so bad that by not doing it, our second visit was overall better. That's all I mean. That's just that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay, yeah, you're correct. Yeah, so the first visit, we did conclude Kung Fu Panda was terrible. The overall feel of the park was underwhelming. The sightlines were problematic. Even though they're not fixed completely, they are definitely improved. And then I think my biggest takeaway from the first visit that I want to end this little section with is that Jurassic World Adventure is one of the world's best dark rides. And if there's one reason to visit, if there's only one ride you ride at this resort, that should be the ride, and that could be the redeeming quality of your day. And I still stand by that.
And the Decepticoaster is really good.
Yeah, but my first visit, I didn't leave thinking, "Oh, the Decepticoaster is really good." I thought, "Okay, well, I prefer Hulk," and the only reason I would come here is Jurassic World Adventure.
Our rides on Decepticoaster this time were even better, also.
Yeah, because the first time we went to Decepticons, we thought the station was ugly.
We had time to ride it once.
Really like underbaked trope.
We were like, we need to do everything. So everything was like, we either did it one time or it was Jurassic World, which we had time to ride multiple times. This time, pressure was off. We didn't worry about like experiencing all of the things. We didn't need to do the Train Your Dragon show again because we have that in Orlando and it's in English in Orlando now. We didn't need to do Waterworld again because, again, we have that in the States and it's in English. So we didn't need to ride Hippogriff again. It's like, okay, we have that in the States. We got the credit.
The one thing real quick, the shows in China are a tough thing. And not because the quality of the shows is necessarily always bad. It's the show goer. And I don't want to generalize an audience here, but from my experience at almost every single show, at every single theme park that I have seen in China is an unbearable experience because there's a bunch of flashlights out during the performance. And then 10 minutes before the performance ends, no matter what performance it is, whether it's the It's in Guilin.
Yeah, it wasn't even in a theme park in Guilin.
Whether it's like one of the most famous shows with 600 actors on an active river in Guilin, China, or it's a theme park show at Universal, it doesn't matter. Somehow 10 minutes before the show is supposed to end, people start getting up in mass groups and is leaving. They are in the front of everyone, they're using their flashlights to get out.
It's like, what are you doing?
Because they all think, oh, we're going to beat the crowd out of here, except for the missing 10 minutes of the show. But that means that the 20-minute show is now suddenly broken up in like part I can see stuff, but it's flashlights in my back, or I can just not see it because people are walking in front of the stage all trying to get out. So the show viewing experience, whether it's Waterworld, the plane hasn't even crashed yet.
Yes.
The stadium hasn't even blown up yet. And half the people are on their way out of the stadium.
I just can't fathom it.
And then with the How to Train Your Dragon, it's the same thing. So show viewing, and honestly in China, it tires me out. Because even if it's not a theme park and it is the most well-known, best reviewed, biggest show production in the world, people will
just the show and still leave before the climax.
Yeah, so it's like a Chinese
even Disney
show
has a hard
thing,
time with it. The Magical Book Show. It was like we saw that last year, I think. I can't remember now, but we saw that show and people left before the end. And I'm like, guys, come on. Anyways.
Yeah, and again, I hate generalizing, but the thing is, it's just the reality of going to a show in China, whether it's a theme park or it's like a separate production. I just find that to be troubling, and it really impedes on your experience. So if you don't need to do a show, then don't do the show. Like, skip
all
it,
this
babe.
to say,
like, if it's in the US, don't do it.
It was just a relief to go to this park and only do the good stuff. Instead of feeling obligated to experience everything, even if it's bad, we just did what we wanted to do. There was one attraction that we didn't have time for last time that we did this time, the Lights, Camera, Action stunt show spectacular thing, which was really cute. And they have it in Singapore too. And it's just like it's very inspired by like Twister at Universal Orlando and Earthquake, where it's just like a special effects stunt show thing where you just stand in a room and like watch a whole sequence of stunts take place and then it resets, and it's like a classic quintessential Universal experience that they wanted to bring to the Asian parks, to their little Hollywood promenades, to like really drive home the point of like what Universal Studios theme parks are all about originally. They weren't originally just about, Harry Potter and Transformers and Jurassic Park. It was about, these kinds of scenes and stuff that would collapse and experience catastrophe and then reset themselves, a la the Studio Tram Tour. So the little version of it that they have in Beijing was really cute. And it was like, a 20-minute time commitment. And it's actually so nice that I wish that Orlando had it, because now Orlando is kind of lacking an attraction like this where you just get to see lots of physical props blow up and catch fire and all this. I just wish that we had something like Twister or Earthquake in the States again, because doing this attraction in Beijing
very classic Universal.
Made me realize how nice it is to like get this classic Universal experience in. But yeah, aside from that, it was really all repeats and just relishing in the greatness of the attractions at the park that really, really work well.
So I made some show notes kind of describing our day. So I'm just going to kind of run through our day here. So when we arrived at opening, which is great. We actually got in pretty quick. It all flowed a lot better than last time. Again, facial recognition was set up properly. A lot of people were just using their face to get in instead of everyone having to scan their documents, which is nice. And then we decided ahead of time, as soon as we got in, to just buy individual express pass for the stuff we want to do. Because now the mini apps
we were actually able to do that
Westerners.
without going to guest services.
So like ahead of time, we could already see the prices. We could already see the rides like listed. We just couldn't purchase until our tickets were redeemed. So our tickets were linked to our faces and they were in the mini app, right? So as soon as we got in, they were redeemed and we could buy those express passes. So we actually stood in the little Hollywood area for like a few seconds and we just boom, 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 put them in our cart, paid for them, done. It was great. And so we bought them for, the first thing we bought them for was actually Jurassic Flyers, but we didn't go there right away. We went straight to Jurassic World Adventure because the park had just opened. So we went straight there. And because most people seem to go to Potter, because Potter is just so popular here too, which is surprising to me, but it's so popular. The Jurassic World Adventure, the line, even though it started getting pretty long, we were still in there quick enough to maybe only wait 20 minutes. And so we got on pretty quick. We rode that, and then we moved on to Jurassic Flyers. And I'm glad we did that because at that point, Jurassic Flyers already had a pretty significant line, and so did Jurassic World Adventure. So that was one ride we got knocked out without having to pay for it, really. And we rode Jurassic World Adventure Jurassic Flyers. I enjoyed it a lot more this time because I didn't have to wait 3 hours for it through the hell queue. Even though the queue was full, we didn't have to wait through it. And because it is only available for an individual purchase, so there's not a single package that includes it, there was only maybe like 4 people ahead of us waiting to get on, I think, for the Express Pass. So that was pretty great. And that made the experience more enjoyable. Is the ride kind of really short and not that great? Yeah. And is it worth $26 a person USD? Probably not.
Yeah, I didn't need to ride it again. That was all you.
I want to ride it again. I'm glad we did that.
I'm glad you're glad.
Had a better time this time. Because the first time we were just so frustrated with the experience. Yeah. It was like, it was not great. This time we just walked on and it was
worth riding to get a POV of it. We filmed it with the meta glasses. That was really like the good reason to do it again. For me, because I was just glad like it was already written and done. I'm like, okay, we have the credit. And then when you wanted to write it again, I was like, really? But then we wrote it. I was like, okay, it's fine. Like,
and then after we wrote Jurassic Flyers, we actually got passes for Decepticoaster and Harry Potter and Forbidden Journey, and then another pass for Jurassic World Adventures. We could ride it without waiting a second time. Now, for the Decepticoaster, I think we wrote that next. We took some photos and we wrote it. We used Express Lane, and technically speaking, Express Pass is not allowed to wait for the front row. Even though the front row kind of splits up into a different queue, I think it's kind of like, they want to give people that waited an actual long time the opportunity for that. And I kind of respect that in a way. Other parks do that too. So at least Express Pass doesn't clog up the front queue. But there was a really cool cast member, and we saw us wearing our Universal gear, and he was like, oh, like you want to wait for the front, you can. So we actually did wait for the front.
His name was Lucas.
What's his? Lucas.
Yeah,
is what his name.
I remember Lucas.
We ran into the guy. Out of uniform in the gift store.
We're like, wait a minute.
That's hilarious.
Lucas.
It's you. So we rode in the front row the first time. And last time we rode the front row too. But I just enjoyed this ride experience so much more. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
I love Decepticoaster. It's hard for me to choose a favorite between Hulk and Decepticoaster. Because on paper, they're the same ride, but they're really, really not. Because the profiling for Decepticoaster, you could see 20 years of design language changes between Hulk, which is a quintessentially 90s experience, and Decepticoaster, which is exactly what you would expect from a B&M coaster that was designed in like 2018, 2019. It feels like it kind of has this like wing coaster sensibility. Sean always compares it to a wing coaster, and that's very true. It's exactly how I think the best way to describe it is like a Hulk like hardware running wing coaster software kind of feel. It has a normal sit down train, but it has vest restraints. It's the only B&M train like this. It's a normal like sit down 4-cross train, but with all vests. It's like a sit down version of Banshee at Kings Island, and
very comfortable.
It's really comfortable. It really allows you, like, the visuals are super nice. Like, as much as I love Hulk and it's like kind of funky 90ness to it and the intensity of it, the visuals that you get from a vest restraint on that ride are like incomparable. You just feel like everything is surrounding like your field of vision, instead of, having blinders of sorts with a shoulder harness and everything just kind of being right in front of you. And it's a novelty as people who ride Hulk all the time, as someone who loves Hulk and like has ridden it so many times, the novelty of riding like an alternate reality Hulk, where the sequence of events are the same, but all of the shaping is different, all of the elements, the profiling, everything that could possibly be different about this ride while still maintaining the same sequence of events as Hulk is different. The height is different. The speed is different. Every inversion is shaped differently. Even like the little helix sort of after the vertical loop, but before the second corkscrew, instead of like going up over the launch and then kind of hovering over the midway, Decepticoaster goes like up and over and then takes it way back down to like just barely, like just almost touching the midway. And then instead of like a normal corkscrew that's hovering over the entrance plaza, it has like this, it like hops up and does like this much taller,
like
very wing coastery 0G roll moment, and then dives down, and then like the turn right before the mid-course brake run is way lower, and the clearance for the drop out of the corkscrew is a lot tighter. You get like this great head chopper moment that's not on Hulk, because the turn into the mid course is already up so much higher, and the exit from the corkscrew is much further away. So there's just little things that you would never even think about, things that qualities of Hulk that were changed or just like not necessarily intentionally changed, but just different because of the nature of this ride's design, that you think like, oh wow, like this is different, this is cool, this feels like a unique experience. It's a special, it's a really great experience and a huge quality to this resort for somebody who goes here and thinks like, oh, you know, this is just another Hulk coaster. This is actually a really great reason to go to this park, and like my second favorite ride here by far, behind Jurassic World.
So we recently posted a video online, and the video was actually Hulk on top and Decepticons at the bottom, and I perfectly timed it as soon as they exited the launch tunnel, and then the whole ride. And a lot of people were like, well, you know, it's the exact same ride. Some people said like, the only thing is different is colors, and then some people were like, well, you know, Decepticons is so much slower. But none of that's really true because the Decepticoaster is just as forceful, if not more forceful than Hulk. It just does things with maybe like a little bit less character, I guess, in a way. It's a little bit more wing coastery, like Alex mentioned. However, they still are both very, very forceful. And what I really enjoy is if you watch that video back, if you go to our social media, all three accounts, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, have it. You can watch it back. You can notice that the moment that it launches, it takes the elements differently, but every moment that the element starts, they start at the exact same moment. And that kind of design is so crazy to me because they launch out at the same time, and they reach the bottom of the drop at the same time. And then they reach the vertical loop at the same time. And then they do that giant like helix around the lift at the same time. They do the corkscrew at the same time. Everything is exactly the same time, but while the elements are happening, you can tell it's very different because when it does the first initial roll into the drop, on Hulk, the roll is like a second, right? Like it's a split second roll, and then you drop down.
It's like the inversion happens at the top, and then it becomes a drop.
But on the Decepticoaster, the entire drop is part of the inversion. So like you flip upside down, but then it takes almost the entirety of the drop to readjust and then meet you at the bottom of the drop. But then the videos are at the bottom of the drop at the exact same time. Stuff like that I find so nerdy but so fun. So I would recommend watching a video on that.
I find it funny that people watched that video and still said that they were the same ride. It's like, it's so obvious how different they are.
Again,
like, watch the video. Watch the video again. Like everything that could possibly be different about these two rides that are technically the same is different. So,
but then my point being is that so the Decepticoaster may look a little bit slower because the elements are shaped differently, but it's just as intense. The trains are wider, they're probably heavier, and then the reason that the second or like the last kind of quarter of the ride that's post the little brake run seems slower is because Hulk doesn't really slow down, and the Decepticoaster actually kind of stops the train a bit and then rolls off. But the first 2/3 of the ride are same intensity, I would say, just shaped differently. And I enjoyed that because I actually kind of grayed out a couple times riding Decepticons this time, and like ear popped. And I was like, man, I don't remember this thing being so intense. You know, I remember telling you like, why my ear just popped on the Decepticoaster?
Like, this isn't even that scary.
Yeah. Anyway, so after that, we went and had some lunch at like a French bakery that's right by the Main Street area, and they had this really strange kind of sandwich with egg on it that we had.
That was pretty good.
Not bad. That was pretty good. We got like a 5 yuan dessert with it because it was anniversary, so it was like a 5th anniversary, and it was like a red velvet cookie cake.
Yeah.
What was it again?
It was
like a
cute.
red velvet something. It wasn't bad. It was cute. And then we did the whole loop around the park, and we rode Forbidden Journey. Now, the Forbidden Journey here, if anyone that's familiar with Forbidden Journey knows that for all the installations minus this one, you go outside, you go to the greenhouses, and then you walk to the castle, and then you eventually make your way to the station. And it's all a separate queue from Express Pass, and Express Pass meets you in the station. However, because of the locker situation, they completely changed the flow of this queue, and they did that years ago. And I thought maybe it was temporary and they would fix it, but it's still like that. So now the regular riders, they do the entire queue, they do the greenhouse, they do the whole castle, and then when they were supposed to go into the station, they used the past single rider line, so they go down the single rider stairs in reverse, and they meet up at the lockers and the dungeon. And then they go through the express lane. So the express lane is now the merge point, and everyone goes to the express lane. And I'm not going to lie, it is the messiest setup in the world. I find it so frustrating. It's like, so first of all, there is a continuation problem where now the riders go through the queue, where they go through the room with the talking portraits. They have the same spiel twice because they go through it in a normal queue.
There's a continuity
and then they go
issue
through
there.
it through the express queue. So the continuing thing is kind of annoying. And the locker setup is like the classic locker setup with just the old big locker banks, except they're two-sided. You can tell this was designed before they moved to a new system because it is so chaotic still. Despite them having completely fixed the whole thing, it's still really chaotic. So they did add more lockers inside the land that are kind of like in between Hippogriff and Forbidden Journey for people to use, but it's not obvious. I kind of hope that they do what they did in Orlando and just build a whole locker center and then start the queue. And they just kind of readdress the whole thing and maybe use those lockers inside the dungeon only for Express Pass users. They gotta do something because right now
I can see them doing
really
pretty much
working.
exactly what they ended up doing in Orlando, just taking the old locker bank and making it part of the gift shop.
And then the ride itself, I really do truly enjoy the Forbidden Journey rides. My biggest issue will always remain with the Japanese and the Chinese versions is that they're dubbed. And so it's so obvious that it's just the same videos that they haven't edited. It's just that like it's really poorly pre-recorded Chinese and Japanese versions of it just like played over it. I am still a little bit annoyed about that, but that is just because I'm such a big fan of the original Forbidden Journey.
I don't know. I love Chinese Hermione saying Wingardia Exame, but like super high pitched squeaky voice, like a little Chinese, like a little anime girl.
When the spiders drop down, right? Yeah. But overall, I think the land is cool. And especially the way you approach it. This land is massive. This may just be the biggest of all the Hogsmeades because it actually has several midways. One goes to the Forbidden Forest. You enter where the stones are at. Like the trees have grown in nicely. So for the vast majority of it, if you enter the way you want you to enter, which is from the front of the park and then through Hogsmeade, towards the castle. They even have a little black lagoon. Like all that's really nice. It's nicely done. And then there's a really big walkway all the way to Waterworld that is also the Forbidden Forest and it's also part of Harry Potter. It has like a little pub on it. Like it is nicely done. But the only and the biggest glaring problem and potentially the entire park is that the entire show building for Harry Potter is just there. It's like a little castle on a giant show building. There's no work done to hide the sight lines. It is kind of hideous. We will post photos of that online
like,
with this episode. But like,
what the hell? They did such a nice job of planting really tall trees to help separate Decepticoaster from Jurassic World. Because Decepticoaster, like the whole Cobra Roll and loop and stuff, it's not meant to be seen from anywhere in the park except for in Transformers Metro Base. Unlike Islands of Adventure, where Hulk is like the hood ornament for the whole operation and you're supposed to see it from everywhere. Beijing has the ride obscured from view so that if you're in the Jurassic World area, it's not obvious, like you're not seeing it as much. And I wish they had brought that same energy to obscuring the sight lines for the show building for Harry Potter, because it just looks bad. It looks bad if you're looking at it from like the wrong direction. Like the midway out of Hogsmeade where they want people to exit from that dumps you into Waterworld, you're not really supposed to be looking at the castle from that direction anyway, I guess. But even when you're looking right at it head on from Hogsmeade and the coaster, the little Hippogriff coasters to your right, it looks so bad. And there's no trees or anything planted in front of where the show building is bare. Like there's like not only does it look bad, but it's like never, they don't even plan on fixing it. Like it's not even going to get any better.
Yeah, even if the entirety of the park was only walking in one direction, the way they kind of wouldn't get to see it, there's still the glaring wide walls next to Hippogriff. And it's also just not realistic. If someone comes from Waterworld and then they look at Harry Potter, it is so obvious and so ugly. And it's funny because they kind of fixed that problem with the Jurassic World show building and with the show building for Kung Fu Panda, because those are also in the middle of the park. Like you walk right by them. They did a really good job with the lanterns and the bamboo and everything is going in nicely, and they painted facades on it. Like that is really fixed. But then Potter, and I know their hands are tied with Potter because they have to follow guidelines from Warner Brothers and all that. But surely Warner Brothers would want to fix for this too. Like really, this is the Potter product you want. So I'm a little bit surprised that is not fixed, but that is. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. This is my last problem with the park still. Yeah.
Like external show buildings on like Hagrid's in Orlando and like the side of the show building in Hollywood, at least they're painted.
The trees painted on them.
But like these are just bare bones, steel building warehouse with like little Harry Potter castle embellishment on it. Like it just looks, it's the one thing about this park that will always
makes it so
blow me away is that they've just allowed for that to happen and are not intending to fix it at any time, apparently.
And speaking of sightlines, one thing I want to mention real quick, there is a diagonal midway through the park that was only previously ever used for special events and backstage. And that was one of my biggest complaints our last visit, is that like the park's layout makes no sense. You can't cut through the middle. Jurassic World sits there, but then like the only way to get to it is to go all the way around Metro Base or all the way around the front of the park. Like if you're in the back of the park, you are practically touching Jurassic World, but you cannot get to it. That is fixed. They actually open that as a main midway now. It is acceptable to go through it. It wasn't even that busy, and they used it, so that's really nice. Anyways, after the bin journey, we did another route in Jurassic World Adventure, and then we went to Lights, Camera, Action, which Alex already kind of talked about. So I'm glad we did that. I will say my biggest takeaway from that entire experience, surprising enough, is the sheer infrastructure.
All
for
the
that.
queue.
They can hold 4-hour
There's
queues
just
for
no
this
need
damn
for
thing.
it. Not for that ride.
There's
not
no need
for that
it.
attraction.
No. And then we had a little coffee and dessert at Pete's, because Pete's is really popular in Beijing. And so there's several of them at Universal. And this is so random, but we had our first ever crepe cake at that a couple years ago at that same Pete's. So we had to get the crepe cake at the Pete's. And,
a tradition was born.
And then we realized that we kind of did everything we wanted to do. But we still had a long day left. And we decided, well, we kind of want to get some night rides on the Decepticoaster. But do we really want to spend the entire day at this park? No. So we went to... That was our realization.
No offense.
So we went to Happy Valley, and we used to the metro down to Happy Valley, and then we rode a couple rides. It was honestly kind of a terrible experience. Our Happy Valley visit last time was so much better.
Great,
Listen to that
and now it's
from 2
bad.
seasons
And
ago.
now Universal Beijing was bad, and now it's great. Sad.
Yeah, so to flip table, so we rode Crystal Wing a couple times, and we loved Crystal Wing, and Crystal Wing ran great, and it was awesome. And then we left, and then we went back to Universal, and we had dinner at Hammond's, which was really nice. I think Orlando's going to get a Hammond's.
Yes.
And so we had a nice dinner at Hammond's, and then which is the Jurassic World full service sit down restaurant.
Yes.
And we had a nice view of the sunset on the lagoon. We saw the coaster go by. It was really, really nice. We saw planes land because I'm a little plane nerd, and we're next to the Beijing airport.
Mythos is going to be closing permanently, and will not reopen for quite some time because the Lost Continent area is getting reimagined into a new area. They have decided to convert the Thunder Falls Terrace in Jurassic Park into a full service restaurant. And the only other full service Jurassic Park restaurant in the entire chain is Hammond's at Universal Studios Beijing. So we could and even the buildings are the same. Like they have the same stylistic. Basically, they took Thunder Falls Terrace for Universal Beijing and made it into a sit-down version of itself. So we can only assume that that's pretty much exactly what they're going to do in Orlando. So we're hoping that that's what they do, because we had a great experience at Hammond's in Beijing. It was one of the best meals that we've had at a Universal park probably ever.
Yeah, it was nice, and the staff was really nice, and they allowed us to customize. Like I got
Some
a veg option, also allowed me to get some
options.
fries.
Yeah.
It was nice.
It's really good.
That's always a good time, especially because the pricing changed really significantly. I don't know if you remember that, but generally speaking, the theme park food in China is not that expensive, but at Disney Universal, it's always really expensive. They must have had a problem selling items at Universal because they have a lot of food infrastructure, but it's never that busy at the food places. And I have a suspicion that used to be because the price was so high. The pricing is really reasonable. It is cheaper than Disney, the food, significantly cheaper than Disney. And we had a really good meal for really cheap. And then even our lunch was really cheap, like 5 yuan dessert. I mean, that kind of stuff is really low for like a theme park, especially for admission being so high at Universal. So that was actually kind of a plus. Not that I really count my dollars too much when I'm in China, but I remember looking at the menu and being like, this is like as cheap as, or cheaper than some of the chain restaurants outside the park. So that was awesome. And then we rode Decepticoaster at night, phenomenal ride. And we rode Jurassic World again. And I'm glad we rode Jurassic World when we did, because we were considering riding Decepticoaster again. But I was like, no, I really want to get in Jurassic World again. And we had the park times wrong.
Yeah, we were going to ride Jurassic World a fourth time. And we thought we had like 15 minutes more. It was actually 15 minutes
like
after.
a half hour more. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it turns out the ride was long closed. So I'm glad we rode when we did. And we got everything in. It was awesome.
I'm so glad we did our night ride though on Decepticoaster, because night rides on Decepticoaster are sublime. Like a night ride on Hulk is wonderful. Don't get me wrong, but like Transformers Metro Base was definitely inspired by Tomorrowland at Shanghai Disneyland to be like the nighttime extravaganza experience, and there's just lights on everything. It's all synchronized. It's like a whole show. So like riding that coaster at night is a must, and it is just took a really great experience and elevated it even more. So
And so, yeah, but the overall takeaway is that the show building sidelines in general have improved. Jurassic World and Kung Fu Panda look much better. Harry Potter, like we said, still looks pretty bad. Technology is much friendlier to use. If you're familiar with the mini apps, mini programs, you'll have no problem navigating Universal anymore, which is nice. It's really just much better now. So I think the user experience has definitely improved. Crowd controls improved. I think they moved the crowd to the entrance better. I can't speak for lines being realistic wait times because we pretty much paid our way onto every single thing we did except for our very first ride, Jurassic World, which I don't necessarily support that kind of experience, but we got burned so hard last time going there that we had to just take that kind of control in our own hands, and I'm glad we did. At that point, it's just worth it.
We're always going to do it because we're already out there. It's like by doing the paid quick queue stuff for these rides, it's like, yeah, we spent more money, but the time that we spent at the park was a lot more enjoyable and a lot less of just like standing in lines. And then we took the time that we saved and used that to go to an additional park that day. So like when you're in China,
and I will say
just
in
do
general,
it. Just buy the express pass or whatever. It's just worth it.
And I will say at parks like Disney and Universal, they overcharge so hard for these express passes to kind of control the crowd. Cheap. It's almost like kind of in a way like your experience at Disneyland Paris, where people just don't really buy Premier Access. Same thing with Express Pass. People don't really buy Express Pass and Fast Pass much at the Disney parks and Universal parks in China because they are so expensive. I mean, like both of us riding Jurassic Flyers cost like $52. Like I don't condone it. It's very expensive,
especially for Jurassic
But at the same time, there's nobody there doing it. There's okay, but it's an example. Nobody was doing it. Okay, nobody was there.
The point
riding.
Was that we got our money's worth because man, you just get right on.
And so, what else I want to say? That it's improved. Landscaping is improved, like significantly improved. Everything's better and better maintained. Things are nicely painted. Trees are growing in. Walkway in the middle of the park was important. I'm glad that's open now. And then the Decepticoaster just ran really well this visit. And I think right now it's my favorite of the two, like between Hoka and the Decepticoaster.
One thing I want to say is like, so our first Universal Beijing visit obviously predated Epic Universe. I think of this park and Epic Universe as being sort of like fraternal twins. You could totally build a single resort that was Universal Beijing and Epic Universe, and you would have no ride attraction overlap, and it would actually be pretty successful. Because the studio park for Beijing is really just like an amalgam of the things that worked the best of Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida. So in that way, I feel like the parks are kind of like little fraternal twins, and also they were designed at the same time and built and fulfilled at around the same time. Obviously, there's a 4-year difference, but you don't build theme parks from the ground up that often. So I think the design language is kind of similar. And what?
So to me, I do want to mention that I actually think it's more of just like a modern version of Universal Japan.
Okay,
because
fair.
It has Waterworld, it has Potter, it's like a combined concept. It still has a studio aspect and aspects at the front of the park, but the rest is
really
kind of
just
like
Islands of Adventure with like a Hollywood entrance instead of port of entry. Like that's the long short of it. And then they put Despicable Me where Seuss was, and like boom, that's it. That's your park. And it's got Waterworld.
That's true, especially with like the way that Hulk or Decepticons is located.
Good point. So all that to say, when we went to Epic Universe, we had originally thought like, okay, this is at least nicer than Universal Studios Beijing. It's not really a huge compliment, but based on our visits, we were like, okay, like at least it's not as bad as Beijing. And then we went to Beijing again, and we're like, actually, this is better than Epic Universe. It feels nicer than Epic
Beijing
Universe.
Is the nicer park.
And I hate to say it,
but
because it's not saying a lot. Both of them are kind of not where they could be.
True, but I think I still prefer Epic mostly because it's just like a much more unique stuff.
Well, yeah.
As where, Universal Beijing at the end of the day is still like a rehash of a lot of similar, like a pre-existing rides or very similar rides or
there's a huge
like
roster
overall,
overlap.
I'm just glad we had a good time. Like I would
say that there's still hope for Epic Universe because they've demonstrated that after 5 years of Universal Studios Beijing, things got better and not worse. So hopefully Epic Universe will experience the same positive transformation in its next 5 years. And by the time we're celebrating the 5th anniversary of Epic Universe, we'll be fondly and sort of entertainedly lamenting on an era where the park was a hot mess. And
And while we wrap up this episode, I want to bring one more thought forward. I know we're running over time a little bit, but I want to mention the fact that they have somehow, we're at the 5th year of operation, or 6th season really, but we don't actually have an expansion going vertical yet. We don't have any expansion announced yet.
Also true.
There's a lot of expansion plots. This park is really big. It's really well attended. It is a success story of the company. It's doing really well. It's the Shanghai Disney. It's the Chimelong Ocean Kingdom of this company. But somehow, and I'm a little bit bothered about that, they haven't done anything yet to start expanding. There needs to be another coaster. There needs to be more capacity because the park gets rammed. It's always busy.
They have a plot for Hagrid's.
So I'm hoping
it's obviously going to be Hagrid's.
They have a plot for a Diagon Alley expansion or Ministry of Magic, whatever they end up doing with that. Which I would be kind of cool if they did Ministry of Magic. Because I think they could really use an indoor thing because it gets so cold in the winter. I don't know if they need an outdoor
I could
land.
see them literally just
really
doing
cool
the Ministry of Magic ride from Epic and not doing any of the France
but
stuff.
Making an indoor land.
But like making it,
I agree.
where like the whole expansion is just the Flu network. Like you go straight to the Flu network. Like just taking the ride and attaching it to Hogsmeade, basically.
But storyline-wise, to make a lot more sense anyway. And I do think the Chinese audience is not familiar with Fantastic Beasts. I don't think I've seen a single Fantastic Beast thing anywhere in China. And Harry Potter hits you in the head every freaking mall.
Niffler stuff.
You know?
They like Niffler.
They do
in Beijing because it's cute.
Corrected.
That's like their. It's the only evidence that you would have of that franchise in China is that they like Niffler.
And that's it for me.
Yeah, I think that about covers it.
Anything else to add? That about covers it. I'm looking forward to a return visit to Universal Beijing. I will go again. Now I feel like much differently
now
about the
want
park.
them to open something. I don't need to go back until they build another ride.
True, but if I'm there for work or something, I'm not going to go out of my way to be like, oh, maybe I'll spend a couple hours there, ride Jurassic World. I would consider doing that. And so that rounds up this episode. We want to thank you so much for listening to yet another installation of our very China-heavy season. And please, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please give us 5 stars. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you guys on another episode real soon.
Bye.
Bye.